Nice for that. Can you mark your and confirm on your keypads? Supervisors present this evening.
Thank you. Next, would you please rise for the pledge? Thank you. Tonight, I want to, can you hear me? Obviously, you will. I want to start the evening out here kind of talking about the recognition of emergency first responders. Who are a first responder? Would you please stand up? I want to thank you on behalf of the Monroe County Board, Monroe County citizenry, for your job that you do on those moment notices. I do, on behalf of the population and the board, thank you. This last weekend, you can sit down, that's fine, thank you. This last weekend, I was fortunate enough to be involved, or actually attend, I should say, not even involved, but I attended a celebration of a first responder that was Wisconsin and their cataract first responder group that had I want to say 1985 is when it started. And it was started by Don Hurd, well, he's since passed, but that was something that he had started. And when you think of how first responders affect lives, tonight I could say, Supervisor McCoy, you're here because of first responders. But the incident that involved you in a tree. That's right. So I take not lightly how the 24/7 call goes out to you that were standing, and those that are not here as well. I would like to at this time ask Sheriff Russ Wells if he would come forward, and also Brett Larkin, I guess we'll follow up on that. Sheriff Wells.
Good evening, everyone. I just have a few comments that I would like to make to the group of first responders, of course, which I've been a part of for a few years. We take this opportunity to express our appreciation to all of the first responders. Webster defines a first responder as a person who is responsible for going immediately to the scene of an accident or emergency to provide help. We have 26 first responder groups that provide emergency services for the residents of Monroe County. Who are these first responders? They're members of our families, mothers, fathers, brothers, and sisters. They are members of our community. They live in our neighborhood. We connect with them by way of their titles: police officers, firefighters, EMTs, paramedics. Over the many decades of advancements, the first responders and the services they provide, along with the reduction of response time, has placed the first responders in a very valuable and greatly needed position for the express purpose of responding to emergencies. These first responders are vital to the well-being of our citizens in our community. Their advanced training, certification requirements, specialized equipment, exercise planning, and the sharing of resources are what makes the first responders what they are today. A 24-hour, 7-day-a-week group of people who put themselves in harm's way to protect property, save lives, and uphold the law. What about the telecommunicators? More commonly referred to as dispatchers. Are they first responders? I would opinion that they are. They are, in essence, the first people who have contact with the people who are in crisis, or the people that have contacted reporting the emergency. They are responsible for the gathering of that and then getting the right first responders to the emergency. They then go about coordinating the communications between the various first responders. They're also trained in areas of medical dispatch, providing those medical process actions to callers and family members who are on the scene with the victims. So, as I said, in my opinion, they are first responders also. The first responders have specialized skill sets and make personal sacrifices and risk their own safety for the people that they serve. Each of them willing to respond to a critical incident without hesitation. Many of the emergencies that they respond to include tragic and life-changing endings. The first responders put themselves in harm's way out of a sense of service, and why not? For what could be nobler, one's placing themselves in harm's way for someone that they have never met. Thank you very much.
I just want to start off by saying that first responders, it hits home. My brother here is a paramedic and a firefighter. My dad's a firefighter, and my grandpa's a firefighter. Now I would like to recognize two paramedics from Toma that many at this scene have credited with saving the life of a young girl in an accident this June. Would Mitchell Larkin and Stacy Frost please come up here? This is a certificate of appreciation for their outstanding performance in their life-saving procedure. I would now ask that we all give them a round of applause for their outstanding performance.
This is the chance where you're supposed to say you want something to say. Anybody have something else to say?
All of it.
Again, thank you, first responders, on behalf of Monroe County. We truly appreciate this. Next up, I need approval for the minutes, August 25th and September 1st. Supervisor Pierce, Supervisor Von Druten. Questions on it? Hearing none, no objection. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. Public comment. Just a couple of things to go through. 3 minutes. Be respectful of the speakers and remember no interaction with the board. Opportunity to. First up, Sarah Nibrath. Sorry.
Thank you so much for allowing us the time to speak. We appreciate all the hard work that all of you have done over the last 18 months. It's been anything but vanilla for all of you. Every decision that you've had to make has required much more time and consideration, I'm sure, for you than it ever has in the past. The reason I came tonight is to speak on your agenda. It looks like on page 55, they're trying to pass a policy requirement or mandate for government employees to be wearing masks. So I'm here tonight to encourage all of the county supervisors to please vote no on that requirement. I thought sort of as a community, as a society, that we were moving past such draconian measures. And the reason I'm here tonight is, again, to encourage all of you to please vote no. The number of deaths worldwide for 2020 was no different than any other year. Please reflect upon that. Nobody is saying COVID isn't real. We're just saying the death numbers as a percent of population were no different in 2020. Number two, 93% of the population they will survive. 99.983% of the population will survive if they contract COVID. If they have a vitamin D deficiency, that reduces that survival by 80%. You haven't heard anything about all of us being encouraged to take vitamin D. That's concerning to me. I don't know why we haven't heard anything from our county health departments about at-home measures to reduce to encourage our immune systems to be bolstered. We're not hearing anything about safety reports as far as the safety of these vaccines. The only efficacy support of the vaccine that came out was from the vaccine manufacturer itself. In a time where all of us are having to sift through all of this information and trying to become science wizards ourselves, we need to be able to rely on government to do its job. I am imploring all of you that the job of the supervisors of the county is not to require masks for anyone or any health measures. Masks are a healthcare decision, just like vaccines, eating out, going to fast food, or working out. You don't have any place requiring people to do those things. That's communism. We are Americans and we value our freedom. People have fought and been willing to die for these freedoms. They are more important than you will ever know. If you give them up, you will never get them back. America is the last stand of freedom on earth. People come to America gratefully, crossing streams and rivers and across the Texas border right now in droves because of our freedom. They are drawn here for the right to choose for themselves, to not have big brother government telling them what to do. So I would implore all of you, the size of the masks, the N95, the smallest hole in that mask is 0.01. The actual virus size is 0.03 is the size of the N95 mask. 0.01 is the size of the virus. In an N95, it's three times smaller. It goes right through. Fabric masks have no benefit. Please. Thank you.
Next up, Emily Deffenbaugh. All right.
Good evening. Over the last 18 months, the citizens of the world have been at the mercy of the health officials. What started as a reasonable call to flatten the curve request within 3 weeks was touted as the. During this time, the health department at all levels has arbitrary menacing numbers out which lack transparency, perspective, or explanation. We believe that at first there were good intentions with the question of the magnitude and severity of COVID. However, after 18 months, we have learned from the past. What is clear is that it has now become a power struggle. Will we have individual rights, or will we have a mandate who will have power? On page 54 of the agenda, the resolution on the COVID extends personnel policies, and it creates 2 classes of employees. It will create division, coerce employees to get an experimental, untested vaccine. This policy, we ask that you please vote it down. In the Declaration of Rights and the Bill of Rights, Article 1 states, all people are born equally free, independent, and have certain inherent rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. To secure these rights, governments are instituted, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. This governmental body has been formed to secure these rights for every individual. The health department derives their powers from the consent of the governed. You are on notice that we, the people of Monroe County, no longer consent to this abuse of power that health departments across the country have instilled on us. Please vote against this policy.
Last one up is Heidi Colbert.
As I said before on September 6th at the County Health and Human Services meeting, that peddling fear must stop, that the fatality rate numbers of not even 1 per 1,000 people does not justify harassing families, children, and threatening school districts with legal action if they don't comply to what the Monroe County Health Department has offered up as guidance, not law. We know that when the Wisconsin Supreme Court ruled against the Dane County Health Department and the James versus Heinrich case, it stated and ruled that though health officials can take reasonable and necessary measures, as stated in Wisconsin Statute Code 252, to limit the spread of disease, this does not allow for open-ended grant of authority. What is reasonable and necessary cannot be reasonably read to encompass anything and everything. The Monroe County Personnel COVID-19 Response Policy on page is to provide guidance. Did we forget what the definition of guidance means? Webster's dictionary states the act of guiding, direction, advice, or assistance. Nowhere does it mean required, legally binding, a law. This policy does, however, create division within the workforce in regards to different guidance between vaccinated and unvaccinated employees, and further coerces employees to take the COVID vaccine. This policy does not address that those vaccinated can still get COVID and still spread COVID. This policy does not take into consideration natural immunity or address exemptions or health concerns of wearing masks. I recommend that this policy be rescinded. That please understand, if the county gets to make these decisions, that we, the electors, want the county to back off. The county health does not get open-ended authority. Please give us our medical freedom back. Please allow businesses to make their own decisions as well. We want to make our own decisions in regard to our own health. Please honor the Constitution and our liberty. Thank you.
Jim Leverage.
Thank you for the opportunity to address you. I just want you to think hard and strong about the word liberty and the fact that that's what makes our country strong. And science and all this stuff has been up and down and very variable. And lots of data from other countries is not supporting what we've done in this country. So we really have to open our eyes. And I think people have many choices that they can make to protect themselves if they are in fear. So I like the idea of you backing off on any regulations relative to this. And anything that you do in the future should allow us to go back to the way we were and allow people to make those decisions for themselves. Thank you very much.
That will conclude public comment. Next up, I would entertain a motion from the floor in purpose of funds for highway. Supervisor Pierce, second by Supervisor Schmidt. 200,000. Is Dave Onstead online? Supervisor Pierce, you this?
$100,000, the act was.
Microphone.
Yeah.
You've got a rotary dial it.
I'm sorry, Dave. Okay, I'm on. All right, acquisition of capital assets and stuff. We're gonna get a scale and a sign truck. And, we're just moving some in from, increase the allowance of the tractor and boom mower was more than we thought. And then two electronic aero birds, 10,000. And, replacement of a crash damaged truck mounted water tank. So we're removing these funds to repurpose $200,000.
Any questions from the board?
Supervisors, please vote. And all supervisors present vote.
Next up, entertain a motion from the floor for county end bridge replacement, $300,000 from highway supervisor Larkin, second by supervisor Beatty. On the floor, Supervisor Pierce.
You go, you need it back.
All right, I got we needed some more money to put a bridge in on County Trunk M and County Trunk Z for replacements. And $300,000, so that's basically what their cost is. The addition of County Trunk N. Cost increases for M and C. It comes out to 300 adjustment. Questions from the board? None, all those in favor say aye. Hold on, sorry.
Supervisors, please vote. And all supervisors present. Yes.
Next up, budget adjustment, general fund elections, $217,800. Motion from the floor, Supervisor Hall, second by Supervisor Witzenstedt. I'm going to yield the floor to Shelley, our clerk.
This budget adjustment is in the amount of $217,800. You'll remember in 2020, I came forward to the board in regards to a budget adjustment for the purchase of new election machines within Monroe County. Those election machines were not received until 2021 due to COVID and manufacturing problems. We were not able to get those machines in as quickly as what we wanted to. So those new election machines have landed and we received them in August. And so we're simply asking to move those monies from the 2020 year into the 2021 so we can make that payment.
Any questions? Seeing none, without objection, Shelley?
Supervisors, please vote. All supervisors voted yes. Thank you.
Next up, Rolling Hills billing update, Supervisor Witzenstedt. While we're waiting there, the treasurer will not be in attendance. It is a hard copy for everybody that's present. If you have further questions, reach out to Deb. With that, Tony, you have the floor.
Thank you, supervisors. Welcome this evening, and thank you to all of you who were able to attend the tour this afternoon at 4:30. I know those of you who had been at the site up until this point realize the magnitude of the work that's been done there, the good work. And again, we will plan, weather permitting, that we will try to get the rest of the supervisors there and maybe perhaps do another tour early November, end of October. For those of you who couldn't attend, please feel free to contact myself, contact Tina. We can certainly arrange for you to go out to the job site. I know work schedules and whatnot might not have been feasible for some of you to get there at 4:30 today. So please don't hesitate to reach out so you can get to the site. As I said, it's moving along very well. We are overall on schedule as a whole. We are still on track for occupancy date at this point in the project. This afternoon, we had our weekly, what we call our OAC meeting, and we did have, obviously, Klaus Anderson runs those meetings, and Brent is here with us tonight. We have had some issues with some of the, what we would consider workforce issues with crews not being able to be on site for some of the framing and the rough carpentry. Those issues are being addressed by the vendor who is supplying those materials. You know, according to Brent, if he were standing here, we'd like to probably see double the workforce right now so that we can keep the project rolling forward. But I can assure you that Kraus Anderson is doing a fantastic job on staying on top of that, challenging. But again, many entities right now are finding that workforce is a problem. So we are giving some grace until a point, but again, I can guarantee you that Kraus Anderson, Brent as project manager is staying on top of that weekly. Also, this week, you'll have in front of you tonight a resolution in regards to bid pack 3. Bid pack 3 is technology and equipment, and we have approved 5 of the work scopes for that. Again, you will see that in the resolution coming forward. Bid pack 4 will be due back next week. Bid pack 4 is the final part of the furniture, fixtures, equipment, and technology. Those 2 areas are for furniture. And then the sign vendor that proposed the signage for the entry into Rolling Hills, we felt that their bid was over budget and that we only received 1 bid, so we wanted to get additional bids on that. So October 1st, we'll be reviewing those bids, and that will eventually wind up the bid overall, so we will have that those steps completed. I do want to give a shout out to Adrienne Lockington. She has done a tremendous job in coordinating all of those bids. It is a lot of work for us to make sure that we are meeting all of the legal requirements, as well as guidance from Lisa, our corporation counsel, on making sure that all of those pieces are done. So thank you both for that hard work. In front of you this evening on the table, you will see a piece of paper with some items on the top, and at the very beginning, it is called the Rolling Hills Pour Log. This was something that, as you know, as we talked about the project and we moved forward, that we promised the board and the electorate that we would be transparent in how the project is going, if there were any additional funds, anything that we needed additionally. So in front of you, you will see a piece of paper that has 17 items on there. Over the last 4 months, these are the items that have come before the leadership team and the Rolling Hills Committee to look at these items, because oftentimes there's something that we might want to enhance. You'll notice that there's 2 items on there in red on the core log. Those are credits back to Monroe County for things that we have decided. For instance, number 1 was using concrete fiber instead of, in lieu of mesh, or using, so that brought back a $16,303.80 credit to Monroe County. So this log basically goes down to 17 items. Again, as you can see at the top, the contingency budget was the number that you see at the top, the $834,463. This grouping of these 15 additional costs or changes amounts to the $73,383.81, leaving the contingency at the $761,079.19. Now with that, as you recall or may not recall, there was a budget that was set up by Kraus Anderson with us as a board that we would allocate approximately $60,000 per month for similar changes. Again, I don't want necessarily, these are technically change orders, but some of these have been utilized for enhancements on the project, things that we thought at this point in the project we wanted to do the better piece of equipment or the better upgrade. So at the bottom of the page, or again at the top, you'll see the amount, but if you use the budget of $60,000 per month for over 4 months, we have actually fallen below that. So again, I know that is a word that gets everybody worked up a little bit, change order, but sometimes change orders are necessary because we need to do the project right from the beginning. So going into the beginning of this 4 months, the amount and the total at this time for this evening's meeting is the $73,383.81. So are there any questions? Brent is here if you have a question. Otherwise, I think that would wrap up my report on the building update. And again, if any of you want to come out to the job site, please just let us know. Kraus Anderson is always willing to give anyone on the board a tour. Any questions? Thank you.
And before and I know that Tony just gave a shout out to Adrienne. I want to give a shout out to Tony and the committee because our working And thank you to you as well. Next up, here. Talk about the treasury reports. So next up is Diane here.
First off, I'll just give an update on our ARPA funding that we were allocated. I have sent the process to request funds out to all of the department heads. That was approved at last month's meeting. How to go about submitting a request for funds in different projects. So all of the department heads have that and are able to submit a request for funding if they choose to. Next, I'll give an update on our self-funded health insurance. As of right now, the balance in our bank account for those claims is $122,665.89. Our claims have been kind of sporadic. Some weeks have been pretty good, some weeks have been a little higher. There will be more information presented next month on premium stop loss activity. When we get some more information next week from our, so there will be more information coming next month on self-funded plan. The next item, this is beginning on page 14 of your packet. There's a nursing home project funding plan. I did hand out a revised version on your desk here, and the reason it's revised is one of the vendors, We Energies, they wanted to be included in this approval package for their natural gas line that was installed. So there's another $5,416.60 that was added to the revised funding plan. So I just want to make sure you have the most current version. The next item is page 15 in your packet. That's our cash graph. Again, the cash went down a little bit during the month of August, like it has in other years, and that's because there was approximately $9 million paid out to the municipalities and the schools for our property tax settlement. We also paid out our September 1st, August 31st interest payment of $387,185 for our Justice Center bonding. Next item is the restricted committed assigned funds. No major changes on that from last month. The next item is the Monroe County minimum fund balance policy. I will just point out that the third number down on the top where it says our FICA deferred due to COVID-19 of $942,607.57. Those were payments the IRS let us defer from 2020. The first half of that will be due at the end of 2021, so we will have to pay just under $500,000 at the end of 2021 for that purpose. Right now, our general fund cash is at $10,492,95. To meet the general fund policy, we would need $7,278,000. So we are $3,212,000 above our general fund policy minimum. Our next items are our revenue, expense, and salary and fringe through the end of August. There's not anything super out of the ordinary, just one thing or two things I'll point out on salary and fringe. The medical examiner, 1127, their total salary and fringes are a little bit over budget at 68%, but overall they are still within budgets. And then also the finance department at 1151, our salaries are at 66%, which is a little bit higher than the percentage we should be at this point in time, but we are feeling that we should be okay with some additional revenues that were received, but I just thought I'd point it out that we are a little bit high now, and that has to do with staff turnover and some health insurance changes, so. I think that's all I have, unless there's any questions.
Any questions? Thank you. Tina? Oh, I'm sorry. Mary?
So has any of that money been
I've sent out the request information to all department heads, so any department head can submit a request for any purpose. And as it was approved at this last county board meeting, I will compile all of the requests that are received and take them to the finance committee. And then the finance committee will make recommendations and bring them back to the full county board for approval. So I don't know if David is submitting anything for highways or not.
that's for? Roads or highways? And that.
So one of the rules, Mary, is that any municipality or county that has revenue loss, so there's a calculation that can be done to figure out if you've had revenue loss for 2020 based off of your booster audit, based off of the numbers that came out from US Treasury. Any portion that is a revenue loss, 2020 or any of the other 3 years as we go forward, highway improvements would qualify, but not for the 9 million total, only the portion that's a revenue loss.
Any further questions? I apologize. Supervisor Cook, that seems. Have the floor to Tina then, I guess.
Just a few updates I wanted to make you aware of this evening. We did have the Broadband Assessment Advisory Committee meeting at the end of August. Unfortunately, we did not receive any broadband consult or assessment study bids. The committee will be meeting again next week, September 30th, to kind of set a road going forward on how they want to move forward with broadband. So that discussion will be next Thursday, and hopefully we can continue to move forward with our endeavors to try and help make broadband more throughout the county, no matter whether you're in urban or rural setting. Also in front of you this evening, the Finance Committee has forwarded a resolution authorizing and directing general purpose bonds to be offered for public sale. This would be in reference to the 2013, which is the first of 3 Justice Center bonds. And then the remaining portion of the refinancing general purpose bonds is the additional $4 million for Rolling Hills Building Project. So you will be looking at that resolution this evening, hopefully to approve the sale. We anticipate about $112,000 in savings for that refinancing of the Justice Center bond. And then if approved this evening, we would bring back on October 27th, they would have the official sale and bids for those bonds. And then that would be in front of the Monroe County Board that evening for approval of that. Another update, we've been tracking the opioid settlement. You do have a couple of resolutions in front of you this evening that Lisa has been generous and put together for us. One is a settlement for bankruptcy. Another resolution is to kind of help out the process, because a lot of times when these settlements come through, we don't have 2 weeks or 3 weeks for the next county board meeting. And so in an effort to try and limit the number of special county board meetings, it would allow some other approvals, or it actually came back to the county board. We do anticipate a third settlement. We're expecting notice any day now from the Attorney General for that third settlement. The first two were bankruptcy ones. The third one would be a little bit different than that. So we hope to either hear it in October or November, have that in front of the county board for you to review. We do not have any dollar figures on specific how much will Monroe County receive. It's very difficult to get any of the numbers, being that it's such a large settlement. Climate Change Task Force Committee on September 1st did do some tours, which was nice to get out on site. We toured some of the bio properties, the two in Leon, one down on the south side of Malvina, and then we also toured a bridge in the town of Portland that has had significant flood damage. So that was nice to be able to get out on site and see all the improvements that are happening with the bio properties and kind of see what the floods really can do on bridges and such. Also, Cedric, Lisa, and I met with a member of the DNR. In front of you tonight, Lisa's put together a resolution asking for us to be able to apply for funds. We do own some property parcels right now as a county that are brownfields, and so there's an opportunity to maybe clean those up while we have them before they are potentially purchased or given out to other individuals in the county. We did receive notice of violations from the DNR for the solid waste department. There were 16 violations. So I spent last Monday out at the landfill working with David through that notice and other items. We had until November 15th. David did send in a response earlier this week trying to answer most of those. We are waiting at this point on a response back from the DNR. There's a few changes we've asked for in our plan of operations. When that plan was put into place in 2001, several things have changed out at the landfill, and so we're just trying to reorganize and regroup and make sure that we're getting them all the information that they need. So with the changeover from Gail to David, there's definitely been some changes. Also been some changes at the DNR level. So we're trying to get a handle on those. Hopefully, we can come back to you and say we have completed and they've approved our answers for all 16 violations. Also, over the last several weeks, I've been working with Ed. We've been trying to compile some numbers for next year's health insurance. We did give out a few numbers during the Admin and Personnel Committee. They're going to be taken here in October. Hoping we can have more final numbers. We're expecting some early October, hopefully next Friday, so that I can make sure that our numbers are close as final as possible when I send out the budget on October 7th. So right now we're basing it off of the information we have with the rates for next year. Barring any major changes, we're hoping not to have to change that. So we've been working on that, and we're looking to hopefully have approvals in October so that we can have final numbers when the budget goes to the county board for the budget hearing in November. Also, the department spent 3 days the week of Labor hours in the basement training room with department heads and managers, meeting with McGrath to kind of kick off the wage study. So they spent 3 days meeting with the departments down there. Currently, we are in the process of each staff member is receiving a questionnaire asking them, what do you do on a daily basis? Those questionnaires will go back along with their job descriptions, and that's what they will be using as they work through the process of the wage study. So everything is going really good. Heard nothing but good comments about McGrath and how they're handling that wage study. Also, just an FYI, changing weekly. We have several departments that are working very closely with Fort McCoy on whatever needs they may need help with out there. Just keep in mind, we are in touch with them, and we are trying to help them out in that we can here at Monroe County. So And last couple things, I don't want to forget, just an FYI, and I know Mary brought this up at Monday's Rolling Hills meeting. Adrian is putting all of the drone pictures that she's getting from Kraus Anderson out on the website. So if you didn't get a chance to go out on site, or even if you did and you want to kind of see the pictures that are being taken out there, I encourage you to go out to the county website, to the Rolling Hills Project webpage. Adrian is putting up pictures every week out there. So feel free to go out there and check it out. It's kind of a way to stay in with that project, even though you're not on site yourself. And then the last final thing, currently meeting with all the departments on the 2022 budget, going very well. Departments did an excellent job this year. Really kept in mind that the levy cap's in place and the budget is tight. I was very impressed with the budget submitted. They did a lot of my hard work for me. We are not balanced at this time. I don't have final numbers, but I am hoping to meet with every department by the end of the day, Friday this week. And then spend the weekend trying to work on balancing out that budget and having final numbers pulled together by the end of next week. We'll start building budget books for that October 7th meeting. That's all I have this evening, unless you have any questions for me.
Questions?
Thank you very much.
I guess next up is, county forest land presentation by our Chad Ziegler.
Am I on over here? Good evening, everyone. The Natural Resources Committee and myself have been working on this project for the last few months, and now we're finally to a point where we can. So this is an overview map of the property. You'll see a crosshatched parcel in the right-hand side. That's the parcel that we're looking at purchasing and adding to the county forest. The green shaded boxes are existing county forest parcels right now. You look, there's the village of Wyville right there, and then Valley Junction is. So just some statistics on the property. It's 234 acres, more or less. Approximately 195 acres are pine oak forest, and much of the property does have mature timber on it. We would potentially manage it after we buy it. There's 39 acres of wetlands, different classifications of wetlands, but 39 acres total. And then the property includes access road, which actually provides really good access to the property for management and recreation. The road is about 1.6 miles long. The property is currently enrolled in the Managed Forest Law, which is a tax law program until 2028. And then the 2020 taxes are $211. So this is the yellow highlighted parcel is the parcel in question. The green dashed line is the access road through the property. As you can see, our county forest is up in this area here. These lighter areas are kind of the little wetland pockets that are scattered throughout. This area here is more dominated with medium age to mature pines, and then the rest of it is either oaks or scattered oak pine forest mixed. And then one other thing I guess I'll point out as long as we're here, this area right here is the future county park site that we have the purchase option agreement on with the iCrush. This here is just, I added a half a dozen or so photos so you can kind of get a picture of the property without actually seeing it. This is from Exodus Avenue, the southernmost portion of the property, looking down the access road to the north. This is about 300 yards farther down the access road. There's kind of a natural woods opening, maybe an old landing site. This is one of the bogs on the property. Looking kind of to the north, this is actually part of one of the larger marshes. This is a small little 1 acre or half acre wetland property. It's kind of a neat mixture. There's more mature forests, and then scattered about the property, there's all these little wetland pockets, so it provides a lot of different habitat types. This is another portion. Majority of those larger trees in the background are white pine, and then the smaller ones you see are young maples coming in the understory. Again, a similar picture, just in a different area. This is kind of a little ephemeral wetland. It's seasonally flooded primarily in the spring, and then it tends to dry up. These are pretty unique for a lot of our county forest areas, since a lot of it's high and dry sand. These are pretty important to certain wildlife species, especially amphibians. So we have a signed offer to purchase from the property owner. The purchase price for the 234 acres is $365,000. That figures out to about $1,557 per acre. The owner would like to close in August of 2022. And then you'll see below there's 3 contingencies that are written into the offer. The first one obviously is county board approval. The second is approval of a county forest interest-free project loan. And the third is approval for the Nelson Stewardship Grant. There's a lot of reasons the committee is looking at this acquisition, and I'm going to go through them all here. One of them, close proximity to our future county park site. So as I pointed out earlier, we have a purchase option agreement on 11 acres, which is attached to this approximately 150 acre lake that's being formed as we speak. So this property will be a great addition, enhance recreation in that area, especially after we start our park development phases. This area, this is in the town of Byron, like I mentioned before, and so you'll see all these little wetland pockets. And when we do our forest management, a lot of times that makes our access a little bit difficult. So a lot of this area is winter-only access, but with this, if we end up buying this property and we have this 1.2 mile access road, that'll open up access for about 120 acres of our existing county forest, so give us easier access to do management on it. So one thing that this parcel will do is in close proximity to our existing county forest, it increases our management blocking. If you look where the pointer is here, I'm following a pink line. That is our county forest blocking boundary. That blocking boundary is an area that the county has identified as where we would consider acquiring properties if they're important in certain access or areas like recreation or fit in well with our current county forest parcel. We have 3/4 of a mile of common boundary with this parcel, so it fits in or it blocks in really well with our existing property. One of the big things, and this is kind of a big picture idea, but if the county ends up purchasing this property, we're looking at potentially really reducing the potential for landscape fragmentation. And that really plays a huge role in, managing for wildlife species, especially endangered species. There's a whole host of other, opportunities for it. And you can kind of point out, you see all these little red squares all over on this property or around this property here. That's landscape fragmentation, and there's a really good chance if we don't buy this property will potentially get split up into little parcels like that. And then last, here on this sheet is efficient forest management. The larger blocks of forest you have in an area, the more efficient it is to go in there and do timber sales, do plantings, other management like invasive species and wildlife projects. I've sent letters to the town of Byron, all the supervisors and the clerk, and so far I've, heard back from the town chair. I don't have any official, correspondence from them, but, the town chair is, very positive about the whole acquisition and is very encouraged by increased, recreation that we would have, promoting the forest management, the wildlife management, and one of his biggest things is he says these large parcels like this don't come around very often. So this is adjacent to existing county forest, and it's an opportunity that, in his opinion, we shouldn't pass up. So sustainable forest management, this is kind of a hard topic here to put your finger on. Our county forest is all inventoried and go through a fairly lengthy process of make sure we're trying to manage everything in a sustainable way. And a lot of times, this sustainable management almost always leads to increased water quality on the property. And also, through our sustainable management, we're providing revenue through our timber sale program. Since 2007, we've harvested about $1.5 million on the county forest. But it's a fairly significant amount of money, especially considering the small size of our forest. And we've returned about $150,000 back to the townships in tax severance payments. This project would also, and the county forest in general, help support the economy. Outdoor recreation in 2020 was a $7.8 billion industry in the state of Wisconsin. And the forest products industry, which happens to be the second largest industry in the state at $24.5 billion worth of output. You'll see down on the bottom of that slide there's some statistics related to Monroe County. The forest products industry is ranked, the output that is produced by the forest industry in this county is ranked 8th in terms of industry in our county. 427 jobs related to the forest products industry. And the average annual income is $58,000, which is $8,000 per year higher than the average job in our county. This is the funding proposal. I hope you guys can see this because I can't see it very well, but the top 5 lines, you're looking at approximate, this is all estimated, obviously, approximate final cost of $368,100. I'm gonna have to move up here. I'm getting old and my eyes are getting bad. So we're looking at an interest-free project loan, final balance of about $86,000. For those of you who may not know what these interest-free project loans are, because we have lands enrolled in the county forest law program, we're allowed to borrow money from the DNR, interest-free, and we pay that back as we harvest timber through our timber sale program. So if we were to have a $100,000 loan, and next year we harvest $0 worth of timber, then we pay back the $0 off the loan. We harvest $100,000 next year, then we would pay 20% back or $20,000 back off on the loan. The second line on the bottom there right here is a Knowles Nelson Stewardship Grant. We can apply for a grant to help pay for up to half of the cost of the property. And so that's estimated would be $183,080. The third line down here is forestry land purchases account. This is a non-lapsing account that has money set aside in it just for land purchases that would be enrolled into the county forest law. That dollar figure is $49,255. That's the exact amount in that account. And then last on the list here is the land development and management account. Many of you that have been on the board for a while are familiar with when the ATC transmission line came through. The county was paid about $1.2 million, I believe, in environmental funds that, and a portion of that was earmarked towards public parks and outdoor recreation. So the committee is proposing that we use $50,000 from that account to apply towards the purchase of the property. Everybody hear me fine? Okay. I'll back up here. So this project loan amount of $85,000 could potentially turn to zero. And the committee is proposing, we have a 40-acre parcel of land in the town of Lincoln that's enrolled in the county forest. And it's actually a landlocked parcel. I've been given access, or I have access from the private landowners adjoining. And they've been fortunate, or we've been fortunate enough, they've granted me access to do the management, but technically the public really doesn't have any access unless they're an adjoining landowner. So with this proposal, the committee is also proposing to withdraw and potentially sell this parcel and use it to apply to the amount of money that the county has invested in this project property. And with that, is there any question?
Do you hear me? Okay. So would we extend any of that, trail with access road there? Maybe get more public access to where we are? Or would that just stay 1.2 miles? And you would just clip it from there into the rest of it? Or, I mean, because it looked like there was a little bit of part where you, if you had this road, we could maybe extend it a little bit to make it a little easier.
So we don't have any definite plans yet. I think my current committee right now eventually would like to connect that public access parcel all the way across and then potentially do recreation trails and stuff like that. But that's, you know, a long-term dream, I guess we could say for now.
Question? Supervisor Howmaker. Okay, does this, where that lake is, does that connect to this parcel? It doesn't look like it does.
It does not connect to it.
We don't.
But then would we have to acquire more land so that it does connect to, because I'm assuming that whatever activities we're gonna want is gonna be adjacent to that lake.
Yeah, if we wanted to connect it to the lake, there's a bunch of parcels in this area here. There's a 20 here and 60 here. There's some smaller parcels in here that we would have to connect the dots between the lake and our existing property. Correct, we're not connected at this time.
Any further questions on the presentation? No more, thank you. We will go right in. Can everybody hear me okay? We're going to go into the phone. Motion increase effects on balance, lapse and cap department offered by that potential. Supervisor Leahy, second by Supervisor Pierce.
So, back in 2000.
It's not.
How are we now? So back in early 2019, the county board passed the non-lapsing capital improvement account resolution, which set up with this non-lapsing account, and then all of the excess park revenue each year would rolls over into this non-lapsing account. And that account originally had a maximum balance of $200,000. And so the whole purpose of this account was to keep the Parks Department off of the tax levy. And so now what we're doing is proposing to increase the maximum balance from $200,000 to $300,000. The current balance is $154,000, and that's from 2018, 2019, 2020 excess revenues. When I did the original resolution, I had a big long PowerPoint with all of our buildings and structures and everything that's expensive out there. And I'm just going to give a quick summary. We have approximately $1.4 million worth of assets at McMullen Park. There's 15 structures, estimated replacement cost at about $650,000. These are probably in today's dollars, or maybe last year's dollars, so they could be kind of light. We have approximately $400,000 in roads and about $250,000 in utility infrastructure, water, sewer, electric. Another $140,000 in equipment. So the committee is, one of the reasons for establishing this capital improvements account is to save up money to build another shower building out at the park. Currently, we have one shower building with flush toilets, and we have 4 vault privies. And the existing building, we have 4 toilets, 2 urinals, 4 showers, and 4 sinks that is combined with the men's and women's side. On a busy weekend like what we're going to have this weekend, we could have 600 campers in the park, all sharing that one building. So what we're looking at doing is building another building over on towards the east side, or a little bit more centrally located in the park. And I got some plans and some estimates from some of our local counties, Clark County and Jackson County and Juneau County, all built buildings here in the last 5 years or so. And the most recent one was Clark County. They put one up real similar to this one in the picture, except for smaller. And their bids came with the septic system, I think came in at about $155,000. So what I did is I took the square footage off their plans and I calculated an estimated square footage cost. And then I looked up the inflation rate for 2018, 19, and 20 and applied that to the square footage cost. And with the building that, I mean, this is all preliminary, but with what we're looking at building, with 4 sinks, 5 toilets, 1 urinal, 6 showers, which is a little bit bigger. It's 2 more showers and 2 more toilets, or sinks bigger than this building in the picture. An estimated cost with the septic system is somewhere around that $330,000 range. Sounds like a lot of money, but whenever you put a commercial price tag on a building, you can automatically increase probably double what something would cost if you're building a residential structure. We also have about 12,000 square yards of asphalt at the park, which is probably 2/3 of the length of roads out there. They were paved in 1999, and we're estimating 30-year pavement life on them. Out of these figures, I had gotten David to figure this information out, but we're looking at a total replacement cost of around $335,000 when the useful life of the asphalt is up, and that's estimating that to be somewhere around 2030 possibly. Looking at about $665,000 worth of just the major capital improvements. Now, this doesn't include the $10 or $15 or $20,000 projects that we put into the budget each year. And approximately, it would take about 9 years roughly of savings, additional savings on both of these projects. Any questions?
Supervisor Cook?
Have a septic system. That septic system out there, awful big. So I think before you just figure you're going to have to put it in, it might not be required at all. And a lot of those campers out there have their own self-contained showers and bathrooms.
see that.
Technical problems here. Any further questions? Mary, you still have the floor, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's just. I
Questions from
looked into
supervisor?
a Septic system before I just,
Further questions?
He wants to answer. So the current septic systems that we have out there are large. The reason why they are large is a lot of our volume is over a short period of time, 3-4 days. They're sized appropriately. I've looked into it. I've been looking into it for several years. There's no way the state would let us build another shower building without putting another septic in.
Supervisor Kuhn?
Essence, what you're saying, then, Judge, is that the $200,000 limit that you currently have is not sufficient to get the job done.
That's correct.
And further, Supervisor Kuhn? Supervisor Hobbaker? Supervisor Glenn?
We'll save the best for last. I don't mind. I'll go before you. I think my family, we camp out there, probably 2-3 times a year. You know, softball tournaments that go on and on. We camp there the 4th of July. Can't imagine what it's gonna be like this weekend. I don't wanna go within house from Lawrence, but I don't really wanna go any closer to Lawrence than I'm going to get. Because it's hectic, and I can't imagine what the park is like, but I can tell you camper bathrooms break, camper toilets clog, get full, have to have somewhere else to go. We camp to the east. We camp down by the lake. We're down in the corner down there by the sites. The distance from where half of the campground is to that current location. You're not walking there. You're not letting your kid walk there. You're up in the middle of the night walking your kid over there. Other houses, they're great, but it needs a second one. The second one needs a nice upgrade because it is a beautiful park, and the more successful Cran Fest and Labor Day and activity that gets out there, not everybody wants to go camp. I'd imagine you got a lot of tenters out there. Good portion of tenters. But personally, I can tell you that bathrooms in a camper break. Don't always have the option. You might buy a camper with a bathroom and a shower, but eventually you're gonna go to the site. It's gonna break, and having that building up there that you guys have on top of the hill is great. If we can duplicate that, that would be great.
One comment to that, also, not only things break down, but just because people have all the fancy amenities doesn't mean they necessarily use them. You know, a lot of people have a shower and a toilet, and it's kind of an emergency thing, or maybe the wife uses it at night, but they don't use it during the day. So it's one of those things, just because they have it doesn't necessarily mean they use it.
Further questions?
Chad, you're not increasing the capacity of the park here. You're just building another shower building. So if your septic system is large enough for the park right now, and the well is large enough for the park right now, you don't need another well, you don't need another septic system. And hook right into the existing one, especially if you put that building right next to the other building. The big problem at the park is that, and staff is cleaning the showers. No one can get in the bathrooms. That's the problem. So if you had another small facility next to that, that would solve that property. They could clean one set of bathrooms. When they're done with that, they'd be open to the public. They go clean the other set of bathrooms. That's all it is. Okay, thank you. Supervisor Monroe.
I don't know, conversation that I have with a lot of people is how much they love to go to that park. And if we had more places and more trails, places for SUVs or whatever they call ATVs or whatever that is, I think that would be a drawing card to come to this area for keeping families together. Going on vacations now, people can't afford to go like they used to. And if you can go to, I have tons of people that spend weekends there or sometimes a month there. And they're bragging all the time about what a great place it is. So if we had the opportunity to advance the space that we have, I think this would be a good opportunity.
Supervisor Van Wyken, Supervisor.
Existing one, but in a different location in the park. And the reason for that, campers do not have to walk as far to use the facility. It was mentioned that, you know, if you're a family and say you did not have a camper yourself and you wanted to walk your children to the facility in the night, don't want to walk. If you're camped at the lake end, that's a long hook to go for a shower, restroom. So I think the intention was to get it closer, centrally located to the lake, so we have distances for all the families.
Just to make sure we stay true to the point of the resolution, I believe the request is to allow us to increase the non-lapsing fund to 300,000 so that any improvements in park operations can go forward. I believe, Chad, you have just brought forward some ideas about where this money may be spent. This is not a resolution about how to spend the money. This is a resolution about how to save the money. And then my question is, specifically, what did we see for park revenue in 2020 approximately, and what do you think might see in revenue for 21 that would go into this fund?
So 2020 was down a little bit because we didn't open until the 1st of May. So I think we put about $50,000 more or less into the non-lapsing account. This year, just estimating, obviously the year's not over, we'll probably put somewhere in the neighborhood of $75,000 into the account if this resolution is. If the resolution isn't approved, then we'll put about $46,000 in.
Any further questions? Seeing none,
Please vote. You are voting. Select yes or no.
The resolution passes with 14 voting yes and 2 no.
Next up, resolution providing for the sale of approximately $8,485,000 general obligation bonds. Supervisor Pierce, second Supervisor Helverson. See, we have somebody on the phone there if there's questions. See that? Tina, you may.
In front of you have a resolution. The first portion is, the initial resolution authorizing the additional $4 million, for the Rolling Hills project was approved in May. So we're just looking to move forward with that actual bonding. And then the second whereas discusses, the refinancing, the $4,485,000, to refinance that first Justice Center bond from October of 2013. So if you move forward, I believe in your packet, you should have some pages from FAIR themselves that kind of goes through some of the estimates of what those payments would look like. The estimated interest rate would be about 1.83%. Our estimated present value of savings on that refinancing would be $112,390. And that would be very specific to that refinancing. The estimated interest rate is for both bonds. So the refinancing is for 4 years. The 4 remaining years of that 2013 bond, and then the $4 million would be that 20-year bonding that would kind of schedule out with what we bonded that $16 million back in January. Guess I can answer any questions. Overall, looking at that $4 million bonding for Rolling Hills, with an estimated 2.05% on that 20-year $4 million piece, you're looking at payments between principal and interest of about 4.88 million in total payments for that, and total payments for principal and interest of the whole $20 million for the Justice or Rolling Hills would be $23 million. That evening for approval of those bids.
Supervisor Rennie Holmes.
Is that a higher interest rate? Seems like 1.2 is supposed to be our maximum payment, and now it looks like we're paying 1.2 all the time.
One thing to keep in mind as you're looking at those documents, the refinancing is a shorter payback, that 4-year payback. So they're looking at more of a 1% estimated interest rate. And then the Rolling Hills 4 million, because that's a 20-year payback, that longer term payback, they're estimating about 2.05% life of that.
So that's not-
Is higher than
Further questions? All right, Shelley.
Supervisor Holt. All 16 advisors voted yes.
Thank you.
Next up, resolution authorizing contract settlement for the 22-23 collective bargaining agreement between Monroe County Professional Police Association. Any motion from the floor, Supervisor Gomez, second by Supervisor Larkin. Resolution 92102 is on the floor. Supervisor, Personnel Director, Ed.
No, I'll defer to you again. I appreciate your time tonight. What you have before you is the bargain and agreed upon tentative agreement between our bargaining committee, which this year we ran into some unique challenges, but we were able to overcome them, working with our committee Chair Wally throughout that, and the WPPA, which is our Sheriff's Department labor union. So that consists of our detectives, our patrol sergeants, our patrol officers, and our bailiffs. So that is the group that is considered protective status under union. There's 23 staff members. Looking at the resolution, the main points of interest are that we combined about 5 MOUs that we currently had with the union, consisting of the 12-hour scheduling. We did that for our patrol officers about a year and a half ago as a trial run, and it's gone extremely well, and our staff have embraced it. So we wanted to make that part of the official contract. With that, there's some alternate schedules for the detectives and some language built in for additional comp time. With the 12-hour days, you earn your comp time, which is essentially an offset to overtime. So previous caps were set at 80 and 88 and 40, but 48 hours is the current cap that they could have in their bank, with 96 being double the amount that they could use throughout the year. We put in some additional language in regards to death within the line of duty, which would allow that 100% of the sick leave payout would be afforded to our deputies or anybody else that was killed in action. So those are the types of additions that we had. We had some minor language that we did tweak. We increased the shift differential from 35 cents to 50 cents for when someone's working the second shift, which would be the 6P to 6A shift. So that used to be 35 cents is the only differential. We increased that to 50, and we added some more clarification in regards to the realms of training and things of that nature. The document itself is a little bit lengthy, but the highlights of it I tried to incorporate into the resolution that you have before you. The K-9 unit, we didn't have anything officially clarified in our contract. That's mentioned here, that we wanted to make sure that was incorporated so it remains consistent through the next 2 years. So it's a bit of a staggered wage schedule. What the members came back with us was requesting that the investigators and the sergeants get 4%, the officers get 3%, and if anybody is within their first year, they would only receive a 1%. Now, please note that if someone's in their first year, they will complete that within the next year and be risen up to the next level. So there's 2 levels for patrol and bailiff. Investigators or sergeants, we do no longer have a step 1 and step 2 in January. So that was one of the big changes we had. We had an investigator first year rate, which we had never used in the last 20 years, so we removed that. So our goal was to help keep competitive. In our area, we're very rare. We have state patrol, Sparta and Toma PD, and La Crosse County surrounding. So when looking at our comparables, those were all taken into account, as well as the other adjoining counties. But those are really what our direct competition is in this direct field. We've been very fortunate with the officers we've been recruiting, but it's not like it used to be. As you've heard from a number of people, recruitment is difficult, and in law enforcement is exceptionally difficult. We have to get the proper people in and get them with the right qualifications. But we have a new program where we'll bring people through the academy and things of that nature. But going with the rates that we established here, and the union has already voted and agreed upon, this would keep us competitive with the market around us and keep us with our comparables at or above throughout the wage scale. But if there's any other questions, I'm here for it. Otherwise, I defer to you.
Questions? Supervisor Nicholson.
I don't want this comment or statement that I'm not in favor of this, because I am, but do you anticipate any issues as it relates to wage compression?
Mark, close your mic. Sorry.
Am I on? All right, sorry about that. I don't want this to be taken that I have any issues with the numbers presented, because I absolutely don't. But do you anticipate any issues down the road with wage compression for the middle management supervisors and going up?
Yeah, and that's why we have the graph on site. So that's really what we're hoping to address with this department specifically, is to take a look at what our bargaining numbers are. We have a little compression matter coming up just with our current numbers. So that is something that is going to be addressed, and thankfully McGrath has a good background with law enforcement. So we're going to leverage that to our advantage and make sure we can address it appropriately.
Any further questions?
Oh, sure, you have no problem. I'm just gonna drop.
Thank you.
Next up, resolution 92103, authorizing or maintaining changes to current Monroe County Personnel Manual. Board policy, entertain a motion from the floor. Supervisor Paul, seconded by Supervisor Leahy. You have the floor.
What you have before you is a resolution referencing 4 other resolutions that have already been previously passed. What we're doing is just an extension of what's currently in place now. We updated our personnel policy, and this is for our staff only. This is not for the entire county. I want to make sure that's emphasized here this evening. So this is just for Monroe County staff. It's in place. If you take a look around the room, the masking, I would say that's minimal. We put a lot of trust in the staff to have conversations and to do the proper social distance. But when looking at this, I encourage you to vote yes on this because what it does put in place mitigations for if our staff have to stay. Right now, if someone has to quarantine a child or they have to quarantine themselves, or if they're sick, it gives an opportunity for them to use other time. Otherwise, if we go letter of the law to our official policy, if someone had to quarantine due to a daycare closing or a school quarantine of a child, which we have a number of staff on right now, they would have to use 24 hours of family sick leave and the rest vacation. So this gives staff the option to exercise their right to use sick leave. Some of them have even opted to use leave without pay to help, say I only want to use X amount of sick leave and a little bit of leave without pay to ensure that I have a little bit more when I come back. So I have vacation or I have sick leave if and when I need it. So it gives some flexibility in that regard. In regards to some of the more strict rules going throughout the state, we are not requiring proof of vaccination. We are not requiring people to get the vaccination. What we are requiring is our staff to be truthful and honest and self-monitor. What I think we've done and what we've seen from our staff is that they've responded to that we're putting a level of trust in them, because I've had more staff report to us in the last 4 months than we did in the year and a half when we had much more strict policies than this that's currently in place going forward. So we've had a lot of staff be very upfront and honest and say, okay, what do I have to do? I want to make sure that I'm not affecting my coworkers. And when we've had instances where a number of staff have been together and had to have it, we've had very good responses from us. So in regards to complaints that I've received from Monroe County staff in the last 4 months, I have 1 regarding this policy, and it was just more or less a question of when can we take them off? And I kind of explained it, and he said, and held a little bit of an eye roll and said, okay. Said prior to you were unable to do that, but now within your own personal space you can. But that is really the biggest concern I've heard from any staff member in the last 4 months. So we are not creating anything new. We're not making anything more strict than we have. What we have currently is going to expire at the end of the month, and all we're asking is that you extend it. I believe the timeline what we have established here is through the end of March. So 6 months would be similar to what we did in the previous 4 resolutions that this board did approve. So we're not reinventing the wheel. We're not putting anything more strict in place. We are just extending what we currently have had in place since June 1st.
And I just want to add too that I think the personnel committee appointed us out as well. At any time you can bring this back, or they will bring it back, because it's on the monthly admin and personnel committee meeting addresses. As in be less restrictive or go away. Supervisor Cook.
Just so I understand it, does that mean that you're requiring the employees to wear masks? And then they can take them off if they have their own space in an office?
Correct. When dealing with the members of the general public, we are requesting that staff are wearing masks, vaccinated or not. And if someone is fully vaccinated, they are able to demask within their own personal space or within the office. If someone has not been vaccinated, we just ask in any common areas that they do. But again, we've put a lot of this on the honor systems. And as far as complaints and everything that's come through, I just want to again emphasize that it's been very minimal. We currently have the policy in place, Mary, so I would just take a look around the room and say that, you know, you're not employees, you're elected officials. So if there's any sort of rule that needs to be inputted for board members, that would be on you would decide. No.
Any further questions? Supervisor, go on.
Okay. Don't turn me off, Wally, even after he answers, because there's gonna be a rebuttal, and then there's gonna be one after that, so just keep it right here for a minute. 'Cause This is gonna be a little thing. I don't have a huge problem with everything after page 1.25. First page and the second. How do you get around HIPAA laws when asking vaccinated and unvaccinated? Question one. Question two. If an employee is medically exempt or cannot get it, you're gonna then make them wear a mask, no matter what. Is that what I'm reading here? Because they're obviously not fully vaccinated, so they must be wearing a mask pretty much when they're not sitting at their thing. Third, if we're gonna make this on employees, shouldn't we damn well do it first as an example? And there is no way in heck that is happening. So let's get all three of those answered for my own personal thing. We're battling this in schools at a time when it's unnecessary. We're not at a level of risk that we need to freak out. We just got over this. We got half of our counties deciding one way, half of our counties going the other way. We got our health department giving orders that don't cooperate with other departments that they say they do. We have no clarity in this and we're going wild. You may think this clears things up. This divides more than we're already divided. And I really didn't look this over well enough until I had heard some people speak, and I'm really glad they did, and I'm super, super proud of them for standing up for this, because what we're seeing in our county is this right here. This is a start of things that we are gonna divide on. We have one school district right now that is gonna do a recall because they can't get over the fact that the public has moved on from this crap. Sorry for the language. I don't take COVID lightly. I don't at all. But we have a vaccine for a reason, and if you want it, or not, you are treated the same. Period. Until there is a time and a place where we have addressed it to, and we're seeing numbers trend up there. Let's get to that point. We haven't worn masks here in 5 months. And now we're gonna make the employees, where we go to committee meetings, not wear masks. I mean, this isn't our job. Like I said, we have 1.5 of this whole thing that can be scrapped, and I'll give you a yes vote right now. But I'll tell you, I will postpone this or table this indefinitely if we're gonna go forward with it as written in its first page. Because I'll be damned if I'm gonna be a part of that. Or you have a vacancy in District 13.
I think everyone. Ed,
Okay, I will try to rebuttal to the best of my memory here. So first and foremost, this has already been approved a number of times by the county board. It's currently in place, and it is something that we're not taking. How do we address the HIPAA law? To ask someone if they're vaccinated is not a violation of the HIPAA law for all the legal guidance I've gotten. So, and quite frankly, aside from in the nursing home setting, is the only place that we're asking. So other than that, we are putting a level of trust in our staff that they are being honest with us. If you look at the variation between the two, there's very little bit variation. This is not something where we're ostracizing staff or people have been living on an island or anything of that nature. Because if something of that were to happen, I'll tell you, me or Hannah, we've gotten a phone call within 5 minutes. Everybody as a staff member is looking for any reason to have the masks removed. What we did is we gave them an opportunity to do that. This is a policy we have had in place, again, approved on multiple resolutions, which are referenced right in front of us. So we are not doing anything. We are not being political with this. We are using the guidance that we've been given. We've actually been given much more strict guidance to enforce. At the committee level, they made changes and decided that that was not appropriate at this time. We are going to extend with what we've currently been using, as our staff seem to have responded positively with it and have been using it for going forward. So when looking at pages 1.25, The only significant changes that we've made in the last 6 months are not there. We haven't made any changes. It's been the same since June. I'm just trying to recall everything that Remy went through.
How are
here.
you dealing with health issues that can't get the vaccine?
People with health issues that can't get the vaccine.
Not
So,
saying you have any right now.
no, I can't disclose who, what, when, where, how. If anybody has had any difficulties throughout the masking process from day one,
No, with the vaccine.
with the vaccine,
You
Oh,
can't medically get the vaccine. You are now in a different category than everybody else.
so I have handled this situation very similar to those that have been unable to mask. Because again, that is not the same question you asked, but what we've had is we had a few individuals that had physicians note that said they were unable to mask due to medical complications, due to a number of reasons I will not disclose because of it. So due to that, we address those issues and we give them other risk mitigation strategies. Again, for most of the areas within the staff, we've increased telework, we've given distancing, and people would have the ability to remove at their own physical area. The majority of the time, our staff are not in common areas for a long period of time, if at all. So again, for those types of situations that presented themselves, we always redirect them, handle on a case-by-case basis, and do everything we can to be accommodating to our staff. Because the last thing we want to do is make anyone feel ostracized. And again, if I've had any complaints come forward, I would let you know. I've had one conversation, and prior to that, when our rules were very strict, we had some people come forward with notes and we discussed it. We said, okay, it'll be granted under the pretense of what you've provided, and all that information has been kept confidential and been disclosed with anybody, not even their manager.
Oh, I'm not done.
I'm gonna,
Can I just got one thing?
Okay, I'm sorry.
To that point.
I didn't hear you.
Then I'll be done. Then I'll be done. So you don't think that anybody is gonna feel pressured to lie about vaccination if they're uncomfortable wearing a mask for whatever reason? You don't think that's gonna create an environment where everybody has to conform to? Obviously, the top portion of that is a way easier work environment than the bottom portion of that. Nobody wants to work in the unvaccinated. Who's gonna be honest with that if they're not comfortable in that setting? You may not hear complaints, but I don't hear a lot of complaints at county board, but I hear the really loud ones, and they're usually the people that are for it. The ones that are against it are never gonna stand up against this. This is the boss, all of us telling them, this is the way it is in Liberty. Nobody in their right mind is gonna tell you different. You're not gonna hear complaints, and you're just not. I mean, there's reading through these, you don't think that there's a difference there in work environment? You're crazy. I'm done.
Supervisor Von Ruden, you have the floor.
I have been very upset this whole time over the fact that this has turned into a political issue. And we are non-partisan supervisors. You all are entitled to speak to us. I do not care for getting emails threatening that you're not going to elect me again. I think you're really good at copy and paste. I think we all got the same email, just a different name. I don't like what we're doing to the kids. We're not setting a good example for the way things are being done. I'm going to abstain from voting on this because I do not believe that we have the authority either way. We're entitled to a policy, but I will not vote on this. I would like to make a motion to table it so we can come up with a better idea.
Motion has been made by Supervisor Von Ruden and seconded. This. I'll let him speak and then I'm gonna actually call. Supervisor Gomez. I wanna know if what. Ed?
Okay, just before you have the opportunity to vote on that, I would just suggest that you do not table this and make a decision today. Because our policy is set to expire on September 30th. That does expire. Currently, we have 26 staff that are on COVID leave. That stopped. That's done. Now we're just charging their vacation for their time off unless it's them that's physically ill, and then we require a doctor slip to charge that. So question the continuing without having some sort of COVID policy in place, as we do not know how the legal ramifications of this are going to play out long term. If we don't have any sort of mitigation strategy in place from the county, we are putting ourselves at a severe risk of liability. If someone is to contract or not contract COVID-19 through interaction with the county, whether it be staff, public, or otherwise, because if we don't have anything in place, it puts us at large at risk. I know what we have by comparison to other counties is very gracious in regards to restrictiveness. I don't even know if that's a real word. I apologize for any of the grammar people in the audience. But I would just like to say that I know a lot of other counties that are requiring vaccine status. I shouldn't say a lot. I know there are counties that are doing it. I know other counties that have brought it back, the masking, and I know some that have gone away with it completely. Depending on the location, the geography, the demographics of the state, everybody addresses this very differently. I think what we have done is given our staff the opportunity to be truthful about this, that it's been in place. And if you think people don't have a problem or are afraid to bring complaints forward, I will let you field my calls for a week. People are very quick to speak their mind, and we empower that. We do not want any of our staff to feel they cannot bring concerns forward. It's been an emphasis of mine ever since I've taken the director role, and it's something that we've gone going forward. So I just want you to think about that when you're considering tabling this. But tabling it, policy expires. It is done next week.
Strike the vaccine portion of opposite way.
I'm gonna take a 5-minute recess. Supervisor Gomez, we can put on the table with court counsel.
Want to meet your deadline, take the vaccine. what I was thinking.
I'm walking as fast as I can.
If you had longer legs, you'd be here.
Hey, come on, short quotes, come on.
Sorry. Okay, I couldn't do that.
That's set it up on a T.
So, just to bring us up to speed after sidebar conversation, the court council, Mary and Remy. Mary has agreed to pull the table motion, Remy has agreed to move his tabling motion. But the resolution on the floor is still debatable and amendable. That's where we are at this point. Supervisor Gomez. Okay, Supervisor Larkin, then Supervisor Gomez.
I would like to make a motion to amend the policy that would not segregate the employees to vaccinated and unvaccinated. Vaccinated and the unvaccinated can both transmit the virus. It's not dependent on if the employees are vaccinated or not. It depends on if the public's vaccinated or not.
There is a motion, is that a motion?
That is a motion.
It is within order. Is there a second? Brett, would you clarify your motion?
I would like to make a motion to amend the policy. Right now, as the policy is written, we have a set of rules for the vaccinated and the unvaccinated. I would like to get rid of the unvaccinated and put it into the same category as the vaccinated policy.
Is there a second to that? Supervisor Cook seconded that. You may speak to this, Emily.
So what you're saying is we would take the employees who are fully vaccinated section, have that, or I'm sorry, who are not fully vaccinated, have that section removed, that those bullet points, which are bullet points, and you put employees who are fully vaccinated, employees who are not vaccinated, and adhere to the who are fully vaccinated guidance, right? Okay, I just want to make sure we're on the same book. Okay, does that help clarify?
Does everybody understand the motion?
And one more time? Yeah. Okay, so if you're looking at the policy in front of you now, there is a section where it says, what does this mean? It says employees who are fully vaccinated, and then there's a set of 6 bullet points, and then there's employees who are not fully vaccinated, another set of 6 bullet points. So Mr. Larkin's motion essentially is to remove the second set of 6 bullet points, which apply to employees who are not fully vaccinated, and put the title of employees who are fully vaccinated and employees who are not fully vaccinated, and have the same set of rules, but as applied to those who are fully vaccinated currently. Unless I said something there. Okay. Mary, are you still okay with your second based on my prattlings and? Okay.
Motion has been made and seconded. Discussion on the amendment. Supervisor Cook, point of order.
This question to the point of order is reference for the corporate council. You have the resolution which is on the table. The resolution, of course, refers back to the policy. Is that policy amendable as it stands as well as the resolution? We're not really amending the resolution, we're amending the policy.
So you're correct, that's a fair question. How I'm looking at that is that the policy is being incorporated by the resolution, so being amended under that. There are certainly other ways that we could handle this, but I believe at this point we can
amendments to the policy as part of the resolution.
Answer your question, Supervisor.
Thank you, just so we're clear on that.
Discussion on the amendment only. Supervisor Smith on the amendment.
Yes, with this proposed amendment, what would happen for staff that are in direct contact with, like, Rolling Hills patients and other incarcerated individuals? I feel like we would be not really giving either of those groups much proper service if we don't require quarantining if they're unvaccinated and no exposure to COVID-19, especially this Delta variant.
Good.
If we were to make this amendment, part of the language that states Monroe County staff who work or provide services in Rolling Hills will be asked about vaccination status and the employee must provide the information. That part would be removed. However, they still do have state accordance laws that they would have to adhere to. So I don't believe, and unless you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe that would have a direct impact there in regards to how they would have to operate their system, because they still have state guidance and laws and regulations to adhere to. But this is more direct to our policy, and we do have other language in here to say some departments, well, that part would be removed as part of that, but I know we have it listed elsewhere too, that some departments may have additional requirements above and beyond what was the emergency order. So maybe a consideration would be to have that language, if you're that concerned, added up. But it's the final bullet point of the not fully vaccinated, but that would be the only consideration there. But still, they would still have to require within the state regulations that for a nursing home or healthcare center. If we want to have Linda speak to that, maybe she could speak much better than that.
I know. Linda.
Okay, within our facility, we would be required by federal and state law to continue to mask regardless of vaccination status. Where we would have perhaps a challenge would be if we are gathering with other co-workers throughout the county. If we go to a meeting, right now, the reason I'm masking is because I don't want to bring it back into the facility. If we're meeting as a group and I have, say, for instance, the other day when we were meeting with personnel for wage study, my staff all were masked, because if there's an exposure situation, we still, it doesn't matter where we are, whether we're in our building or we're elsewhere, we need a mask. Because if somebody gets exposed unknowingly and we find out they're positive, then anybody that's been within 6 feet of a positive person, if they're unvaccinated, are now out for 14 days on quarantine mandatory. If they're vaccinated, it's going to depend on the level of exposure that they have, and then if they develop any symptoms. And so from us, just even from a work standpoint of workforce and having people there to take care of people, we have to mask. And also just from the aspect of we need to keep our numbers under control. So I don't know about other places, but I do think you have a very valid point for the jail, in that can spread very rapidly through the jail. And so that probably would be something that the sheriff would need to address as well, because I think contained environment poses a great risk for staff as well as residents or inmates. And once it starts rolling, it's like a train. It's a slow motion train accident that you're waiting 14 days for that next case and the next case and the next case to come up. And that contact tracing is quite interesting. So, most of this isn't going to affect our staff except for the fact out. And then we do have several staff that are out on COVID sick leave because of exposures or actually sick. So that portion of it is really important for staff to be able to use their sick leave appropriately for that.
Sheriff, you wish to speak to this?
Well, I just make one comment. I mean, after because of the process that we followed, we have not had any. I want to say that aren't, they certainly are not rigid, recommended, higher than policies. Quite frankly, we need to keep our people working. We don't, we modify some of those processes.
Supervisor Balls? Remember?
So just to clarify, under the way this is currently written, under employees who are fully vaccinated, the fifth bullet point says, staff that have been around someone who has COVID-19 do not need to quarantine or get tested after known exposure unless they have symptoms. If we eliminate the entire section on unvaccinated people and move that under that current heading, that would mean that unvaccinated people who are exposed to COVID do not have to quarantine, correct? Unless they show symptoms.
Based on how it is written, that is correct.
I'm asking Wally, but Supervisor Cook? No. Supervisor Nicholson?
So I'm sorry, but I'm still a little confused as to what is going to be left in the policy. Employees who are fully vaccinated, that language is still going to be in there. Okay. So aren't we still leaving that language in there, having two separate classifications? And then if I understand it correctly, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bullet points that are there under that will remain there. And if we do that, bullet point number 2 can remove masks when they're at their workstations. We're not requiring them to wear their masks at any time. We should be encouraging them, but we're not requiring them. So why would we have to have language in there that says they can remove them? I think these bullet points should be somehow addressed, not just saying we're going to take out the bottom part and leave that section that says employees who are fully vaccinated. That's still dividing employees in different sections. And again, there's a couple in there that I'm not seeing how they would be, if we're removing that, why would we leave some of that language in there?
Any further? No, Supervisor Nicholson, if not, discussion on the amendment.
Come in there, should be in there.
Supervisor Gomez, Supervisor Mark.
Go to him first. Good.
You're on, Gomez.
Yeah, go to Brett. I'll go second. How about that, Wally? I'd like to withdraw the motion. Now I'll go.
No. You want to withdraw it, that's fine. I need the person that seconded to withdraw it as well. Okay, now you withdraw it, that's in order. Supervisor Gomez, you have the floor.
So I would like to make a motion to.
We are back to the original resolution, and that's where we're at. Everything is clear, okay?
So our original resolution as reads expires in 5 days. I would like to make an amendment to extend the current policy 60 days. Bring it back here after it's hit the committee of jurisdiction for revisement and reword it. So to be clear, extending our current policy, so we still have a policy in place. If it's broke, don't fix it. But if you're gonna fix it right. That's what I'm asking. Second. 2 months. 2 months, figure it out, stay how we are till then.
So, is there a second, Supervisor Orca? Questions on the amendment to extend the policy just for 60 days, not 6 months? Ed to speak, and then I have Supervisor Nicholson.
I would just ask that we put a specific date to it, as everything else is date driven. I know 60 days, I think you're intent.
all your guys.
December 1st.
Well, if we just said, what is it, 30 days, November 30? So November 30th, and that way we could address it appropriately. That, everything else is
As long as
date
they
driven.
get back to
Absolutely, yeah, but I would just ask that there be a specific date, just so we have that as a point.
You're making that as part of your motion, Supervisor Gomez?
whatever day.
November 30th. Is that appropriate with you, Supervisor Larkin? Supervisor Nicholson, you have the floor. Withdraw. Everybody understand the amendment, which is to give us till November 30th? Policy as it is, and then visited at that. That has been seconded.
I'm sorry, Supervisor Elmer. I know it's a long time ago, but.
As to the amendment, Supervisor Goers.
Oh, that's Supervisor Sim.
He was on the German.
Supervisor Croom has the floor.
Ted, the event of this original resolution committee wants to downsize it because of the issues that were proposed were not appealable upon, so then ended it to stay with what we already have. I guess I'll have to ask the personnel director, do you understand what the body wishes now? I'm a little complex really as to what they wish really is.
Mr. Smoody.
I'm on, all right. I believe I do understand. I believe what the thought process is here, and if I'm wrong, please let me know. I'm wrong plenty of times. The intent is to keep everything intact as it is, as written, for 60 days, November 30th, right?
However many days.
Yes, so it's November 61, whatever it is. So to have the same thing in policy in place for another 2 months, review it through admin and personnel, bring it through the proper change there, whether it be October or November, we bring it back to the full board once we amend the policy to address the matters and concerns of the employees who are fully vaccinated versus unvaccinated. That seems to be in pages 1.25, what the biggest changes have been suggested tonight. So as is, my understanding is that everything would stay in place like we currently have had since June 1st through the end of November. But our committee, who already has notice to put it on for the next month to address, would address that and discuss that topic. Whether we bring another resolution forward in October or November, that would be discussed then. If I'm wrong in that statement, please let me know the motion in a second.
By all means, if it gets done in 30 days, by all means. I mean, if you guys want to discuss it at your next meeting.
Just use the mic, I'm sorry, I gotta have that, so.
That's all I have.
All right. Any further discussion on the motion to wait till the end of November 30th? Supervisor Nicholson.
Did you say that?
You gotta tell me.
I just have one question. With the current policy that's in place, is it being enforced?
In regards to enforcement, when concerns are brought forward, we address them with the staff. It's kind of a self-governing right now where it's managed within departments, but we have not heard many complaints, other staff that have brought forward about, I heard so-and-so. So when those are brought to our attention, we address them and we go from there. We have to be understanding through all this as well.
I don't know why. Turn his mic on right away. Got that one on right on.
Well, of course. Okay, just to clarify what has taken place here and what came before admin committee. What came before admin committee was a large revision to the COVID policy. which was substantially more strict. The admin committee rejected that. We were told by personnel that we need to have a COVID policy. So we said, we'll just go forward with the current policy. And then we discussed, should we do it for 30 days, 60 days, or another 6 months? We were told that we could do it 6 months, but any month in between, we could bring it up if a problem occurred. So, you know, I don't think admin committee has any kind of a problem with doing it for 60 days if you want to make sure something comes back quicker. That is, I'm sure that's okay with us. But regardless of this amendment, we had decided it would be on the agenda every month, just in case something came up. So I just don't want you to think that we were like ignoring it or not paying attention somehow. Thank you. Supervisor Kuhn.
Supervisor Kuhn. I understand the procedure that's being asked for. Understand what Frank confusing is. What new wording do you wish to have?
He's asking me a question.
I
know, but I made the motion. My motion's on the table.
One at a time. Supervisor Kuhn had a question. Supervisor Gomez, if you wish to answer your motion.
I'm gonna answer 2 questions here at once, and it's Wally who's kind of directed it too. I understand you guys got a huge policy that was really restrictive and you narrowed it down. What I'm saying is you guys can do better. Simply put, it can be done better, and striking the division part of this is a good start. So specifically, what do I want to see? The reference Ed in my comment earlier, that whole vaccine portion is irrelevant. Have mask optional. That's your policy. You have your quarantine. That's your policy. You don't need to ask or really matter. Who cares if any of us in here are vaccinated? Are we any more liable? I mean, come on, guys. That's all I'm asking. I'm not asking for you to reinvent the wheel or take this whole policy and scrap it. I'm saying you can do better on the COVID part. You can do better. You should do better. And I'm going to make sure that I'm there at admin personnel to assist you in doing that. That's what I'm asking for.
Any further discussion on the extension on the policy? Kelly? And now we're back to the original.
Board.
No amendment.
Okay.
The policy has been amended for 60 days. As amended, now it's a discussion on the original resolution and 60 days. If not, Shelley?
Supervisors, please vote. This is on the resolution. Pass without voting yes.
Next up, resolution approving equipment and technology for Monroe County Nursing Home Senior Care Facility. Supervisor Wissenstedt, second by Supervisor Ball. Questions? Tina?
In front of you, you should have seen two documents underneath the change orders tonight. There's a resolution that's been updated and also the addendum that goes along with that resolution. The only change that's been made on this resolution for approval of the equipment and technology bids tonight is on line 21. We added in the total to be $535,955. You look at the second page, the addendum, and about halfway down the page, there's a red section called Equipment and Technology. There were 5 bids that we're looking to accept this evening. The first one is residential appliances from Wesco. This is for $100,031. The second bid is IT infrastructure and wireless access. This is a bid that would go to 3RT Networks. That's for $177,044. And then the next 3 bids, overhead paging, cameras, and door access, all would be going to IdeaCom. And those would be for $69,431, $123,608, and $65,841. Because they're receiving all 3 of those, they have provided an additional 2% discount, and that is included on this document for a total request for bid approval this evening of $535,905. This does not change the bottom line as far as total expenditures. This is part of our original budget.
Questions? Supervisor Monroe? You don't need anything? All right, nobody question? All right, Shelley? Resolution 9/2105, Department of Natural Resources, assessment money, WAM, contractor service. Supervisor Gomez, Supervisor Leahy. I'll take the liberty to discuss this. Basically, what's come up is you have the map. Everybody should have a copy of the map. This is a property that has a brownfield issue. Actually, another parcel that's not on this across the railroad track, if you will. We're looking at moving forward. It's a $35,000 grant for assessment to this property. Need to try to clean this up. If you look, there are actually outbuildings and sheds that have been built on. It's considered county-owned property. There are issues. Some of the landowners are wishing to purchase that, but we need to identify and deal with it. So it is a $35,000 grant to be qualified, and we need permission from the board. Questions? Nobody's in the questions? Go ahead, Shelley. Resolution 9/2106, moving Ellicott, whatever it is, bankruptcy settlement plan regards to opioid lawsuit. Supervisor Pierce, seconded by Von Ruden. Wish to speak?
So this one is approving Rod bankruptcy settlement. So the Kruger Dickinson has sent updates that they have been in ongoing negotiations. This has gotten delayed a few times while they've tried to come to an agreement. I'm hoping you've each received a letter that provides an explanation of the settlement.
The reality, I think what everybody wants to know is how much the counties are gonna receive, and at this point, there's no way to decipher the actual money amount that's going to come out of this. So you're relying on the council that's being provided through Kruger Dickers and Son, and the efforts that they've put in to negotiate that. So that's kind of the extent of the information I can provide.
Questions? No?
And all 16 voted yes.
Resolution 9/2107, authorizing delegation of authority for opioid settlement. Supervisor Gomez, second by Supervisor Cook. This one came about just because of the timetables in which we are constantly getting a fluid. First, it's we meet by September 17th. No, now I can do it the 24th. And I'm not going to call it each time an emergency session of the board. Still want confirmation from the board, but this is giving basically an authority, as long as we come back for 30 days, having a corporate council weigh in on it. And that between the county board chair, the county board vice chair, and the county administrator, we can get approval and then bring it back to you guys. Any questions? No. Shelley?
Yes.
I wish to want to apologize to the vice chair that I wasn't listening to the cue tonight. But we're further apart here, you know, we're split. But anyway, we'll work on that next month. I do have, yeah. Just a quick reminder, November 3rd is budget. Now, I'm going to talk quickly because of the holidays coming up. November 22nd or 23rd is Thanksgiving week. Your preference would either be a Monday or a Tuesday night instead of the normal Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Tuesday? That okay with everybody? Seeing no problem with that, then we will shoot for the 23rd. And then in December, I know Christmas is on a Saturday. We shoot for the 21st, which is the Tuesday night as well. Would that be okay with everybody? Give a little more leeway before Christmas. That's okay, or? Any objections? That's what I want to know. You prefer to stay on the 22nd? Okay. If that's okay with everybody, we'll stay with the 22nd. No objection, we'll stay on the 22nd of December then. All right. With that, I'd entertain a motion from the floor to adjourn. Supervisor Lethe, second by Supervisor McCoy. Thank you, everybody.